210 teachings _ of _ Vidyādhara _ Düdul _ Dorjé. Teachings of Vidyādhara Düdul Dorjé. B. Dissolving grasping at the permanence of things. On one occasion Vidyādhara Düdul Dorjé spoke these words to me. The Vajra is the eternal Vajra. For its meaning, look to space itself. Elaborating on this point, he said, behold. This empty space is the ground of the appearances of all physical worlds and the sentient inhabitants. To provide analogies, the ground of the appearances of reflections is a mirror, for reflections are not established as anything other than the mirror. The ground of the appearances of images of the moon in water is water, for these images are not established as anything other than the water. The ground of the appearances of rainbows is space, for rainbows are not established as anything other than space. This space cannot be injured, so it is invulnerable. Space cannot be conquered or destroyed, so it is indestructible. Space abides as the ground of the appearances of the phenomenal world, so it is real. Space cannot be affected by good or bad qualities, so it is incorruptible. Space is unmoving and unfluctuating, so it is stable. Space can penetrate even the minutest particles, so it is unobstructable. Space cannot be harmed by anything whatsoever, so it is completely invincible. When Vidyādhara Düdul Dorjé, 1615–72, 39 directly appeared in a vision, he said, the Vajra is the eternal Vajra. For its meaning, look to space itself. This mind Vajra, pristine awareness, never changes within the three times of past, present, and future, so it is said to be the eternal Vajra. Its meaning is space, inconceivable absolute space itself. In this regard there are three aspects: external space, internal space, and secret, inconceivable space. As for external space, all phenomena included in the vast outer physical worlds, the multitudes of inner, animate sentient inhabitants, the well-displayed intervening appearances of the five senses, your own body, aggregates, elements, and sense spaces, and all the appearances and mindsets of ordinary sentient beings are external space. Once this has been determined by way of the authentic teachings of the Jinas, the authentic pith instructions of the sublime Guru, and your own authentic pristine awareness, the true realization of the manner in which they do not exist and are not established as real is internal space. The realization of the indivisibility of external space and internal space, in which luminosity and emptiness are indivisible as the one taste of your own pristine awareness, the great Dharmakaya, is the secret, inconceivable space. The elaboration on this point begins with the exclamation, behold. This empty space is the ground of the appearances of all physical worlds and the sentient inhabitants. To provide analogies, the ground of the appearances of all reflections is a mirror, all reflections are displays of a mirror, and all reflections are not established as anything other than a mirror. The ground of the appearances of all images of the moon in water is water, all images of the moon in water are displays of water, and all images of the moon in water are not established as anything other than water. The ground of the appearances of all rainbows is the sky, all images of rainbows are displays of the sky, and all rainbows are not established as anything other than the sky. The ground of appearances of all physical worlds and the sentient inhabitants is space, all physical worlds and the sentient inhabitants are displays of space, and all physical worlds and the sentient inhabitants are not established as anything other than space. This space is imbued with the seven Vajra qualities. Even if this space were struck by many hundreds of thousands of kinds of weapons of devas and maras, it would be uninjured, so it is invulnerable. This space does not change by itself, nor can it be destroyed by anything else, so it is indestructible. Although this space abides as the ground of appearances of all of samsara and nirvana, it is changeless in its own nature, so it is real. This space is not adulterated by the faults of bad sentient beings, by the virtues of the excellent Buddhas, or by lovely or ugly colors, so it is incorruptible. This space is unfluctuating, for it is not moved by time or place, so it is stable. This space can penetrate even the minutest particles, whereby everything is penetrated as a display of space, so it is unobstructable. This space cannot be harmed by anything else, so it is invincible to everything. In these ways it is imbued with the 7 Vajra qualities. Since all other substances can be injured by weapons, they are vulnerable. Since they can be conquered and destroyed by circumstances, they are destructible. Since they can change into one thing or many, they are unreal. Since they can be affected by other things, they are corruptible. Since they move and fluctuate, with no enduring stillness, they are unstable. They can be obstructed by certain things, and since they can be nullified by other influences, they are vincible. Such things, having the characteristic of not being established as truly existent, are empty. Moreover, by pulverizing coarse materials, they are reduced to particles. Decomposing these particles by a factor of 7 results in molecules. The empty, partless atoms that result from decomposing these molecules by a factor of 7 are characterized by not being established as real. If you think they existed at first but were then reduced to nothing due to being acted upon, take heed of the appearances of dreams, which are not established as real from the very moment they manifest, regardless of whether or not they have been acted upon, either by observation or by physical contact. 3 kinds of Vajras are relative truths: the wheel of Brahma made from the bones of the Brahman Jothang, the bow and arrow of Rahula, the Vajra of Indra, and the trident of Isvara are said to bear the 7 Vajra qualities. However, when the bones of the deceased Brahman Jothang were taken from a cavern in Mount Meru, melted, and made into the forms of hand implements such as a wheel, they didn't have even 1 Vajra characteristic, let alone 7. To the north of the region Nyenshan Tangla there is a so-called Vajra diamond, but when that object was first broken, it was spherical; when it was broken a second time, it became rectangular; when it was broken a third time, it became crescent-shaped, and when it was broken a 4th time, it became triangular. From that time onward it was said that it couldn't be destroyed by anything, but when the one object turned into many, it didn't have even 1 Vajra characteristic, let alone 7. In China's Beijing there is a so-called iron Vajra diamond. However, even though it is said that nothing can melt it except fire, since it can be melted by fire, it doesn't have even 1 Vajra characteristic, let alone 7. Likewise for all other substances, when they are struck by weapons, they are injured, so they lack the quality of invulnerability and are instead vulnerable. They can be conquered and destroyed by other influences, so they lack the quality of indestructibility and are instead destructible. A single substance can become 2 or more, so it lacks the quality of reality and is instead unreal. Substances can be stained by the impurities of white, yellow, red, multiple colors, gray, and so forth, so they lack the quality of incorruptibility and are instead corruptible. They shift and fluctuate as they move from one time and place to another with no enduring stillness, so they lack the quality of stability and are instead unstable. All material things can be obstructed by something, so they lack the quality of unobstructibility and are instead obstructible. They can be nullified by other influences, so they lack the quality of invincibility and are instead vincible. Thus, all appearing phenomena have the qualities of being non-existent and not established as real, from the time that they first manifest. From the very moment they appear, they are empty, with no basis or root. Something coarse such as a stone can be ground into powder that can be pulverized into particles. These can be reduced to molecules, which can be reduced by a factor of 7 to atoms, which can be reduced by a factor of 7 to partless particles, and these partless particles, consisting of nothing, with an empty nature and the characteristic of not being established as real, are empty, with no basis or root, from the very moment they appear. If you think those coarse things existed at first but were then reduced to nothing due to being acted upon by someone's hand, note that while dreaming, something coarse such as a stone can be ground into powder that can be pulverized into particles. These can be reduced by a factor of 7 to molecules, which can be reduced by a factor of 7 to partless particles, and these partless particles, consisting of nothing, are in the dream reduced to emptiness. However, during the waking state today, that appearance is first not seen, then not touched, and finally not acted upon by the mouth and hands to pulverize it into particles, reduce them by a factor of 7 to molecules, reduce those by a factor of 7 to partless particles, or reduce those partless particles, consisting of nothing, to emptiness. This is revealing. The Vajra has thus been determined by way of its 7 qualities. Now, to determine the nature of consciousness by way of its emergence and cessation. Observe how appearances emerge and cease due merely to opening and closing your eyes or lowering and raising your feet. If you think it is not that the previous appearances cease and vanish as the subsequent ones emerge, but rather that the earlier ones go elsewhere, with all the former and later appearances being truly existent, look at the appearances of a dream. In particular, it is impossible for some substantial nature to exist except as something designated as a relative truth, upon the interrelations of causes and effects. So consider this issue well. Well then, these accounts of space having the 7 Vajra qualities are presented using metaphors to show how space is devoid of movement and change due to its insubstantiality. They demonstrate how ultimate reality is present as the essential nature, which is inexpressible by speech or thought and is devoid of change. It is worthwhile to apply these accounts to explanations of the distinctions between substantiality and insubstantiality and between reality and unreality. So when the moon is symbolically pointed out with a finger, you should look at the moon and not be satisfied with looking merely at the tip of the finger. If you do not decisively recognize appearances as empty by repeatedly familiarizing yourself with these points, you will not come the slightest bit closer to the path of omniscience. When you open and close your eyes and lower and raise your feet, appearances manifest even though they do not exist. Their nature is that as they manifest, so do they cease, and as they cease, so do they emerge. Thus, if you think it is not that the previous appearances cease and vanish as the subsequent ones emerge, but rather that the earlier ones go elsewhere, and the soil, stones, mountains, boulders, fruit trees, and forest along the way all truly exist as they did before, just as they appeared, and that the arising and ceasing outer and inner appearances of your home truly exist as they did before. Consider, when you were traveling from your home region to another region in a dream last night, just as the soil, stones, mountains, boulders, fruit trees, and forest along your route appeared on your way there, so did you dream that on your return trip they truly existed, just as they appeared to truly exist on your outbound journey, and you dreamt that all the materials and utilities on the outside and inside of your home were truly existent, corresponding to the earlier arising and passing of their appearances outside and inside. However, during the waking state today, not even one of those previous appearances is established as real. This is revealing. For example, imagine that someone's shoe was carried away by a stream, and the next year that person and a companion came to that place on the shore of the stream, and the person who lost his shoe commented, "This was where my shoe was carried away by the stream." His companion would be correct in replying, "It wasn't carried away by this stream." Why? When its owner returned here from someplace else, the water that carried off his shoe was already gone. Likewise, for bodhisattvas who have achieved bodhisattva grounds, during the time it takes to slowly lift dice into the air and bring them down, they know the creation and destruction of a great eon. Likewise, yogins must all understand how to create and destroy a great eon within a single day. As Akaya Ayadeva wrote, "It is impossible for those of little wisdom even to be skeptical about this Dharma. If they are even skeptical about it, this will shred mundane existence." The duration of a finger snap is a moment, 1/60th of a moment is an instant, 1/40th of an instant is a flash, and in just a flash an eon is created and destroyed. Likewise, once you have repeatedly familiarized yourself with this, if you do not gain a decisive understanding that all the phenomena included in the appearing worlds of samsara and nirvana are shifting displays of one great emptiness within the circumference of one great emptiness, you have not come the slightest bit closer to the path of omniscience. My child, endowed with the pinnacle of conscious awareness, carefully attend to this point, and by realizing all appearances as space itself, become a yogin of the uniform pervasiveness of space. With these words, he disappeared.